Thanks for checking out this video. You could be listening to any idiot on the internet with a mic in front of them, but you chose to listen to us, and we appreciate that.
We're sending you a virtual hug. If you have any trade questions or start-sit questions, leave a comment. Justin or myself will definitely respond, or maybe even both of us will respond.
If you like the video, drop us a like, comment, sub. You know the drill.
Welcome to A Tribe Called Fantasy with your hosts, Greg and Justin.
Check the description for players that just didn't make the list this week, and leave us a comment if we forgot anyone on the list. At 36, we have Frank Gore. He kind of just makes the list purely for the amount of carries he gets and having the potential opportunity to find the end zone, but he's not the best player. He's old.
I have nothing to add. We're going to move on to Keyshawn Vaughn next at number 35. He had 2 catches for 22 yards and a touchdown last week. If Leonard Fournette plays, do not start Keyshawn Vaughn. But if he doesn't, Rojo is definitely not going to see all of the work, and Keyshawn Vaughn is just a better pass down back. So he's got a pretty decent matchup against the Bears.
At 34, we have Reggie Bonnafon, who had 10 carries for 53 yards and 2 catches for 18 yards and a touchdown last week. With Christian McCaffrey out, Reggie Bonnafon should still see some of the work behind Mike Davis. They are playing the Falcons, so he should have some role in this offense against the Falcons.
Absolutely. The Panthers really want to run the ball, and they like Mike Davis a lot, but they're not going to put all of Christian McCaffrey's work on one person. There's no one person in the league that could replace him, except maybe Alvin. But
yeah,
let's just say Reggie Bonnafon is no Alvin Kamara.
Oh, hot take.
At number 33, we have Mr. Darrell Henderson. Surprising. Thought he would be the number one go-to this week. Looks like last week. Looks like Malcolm Brown overtook him. He had 8 carries for 22 yards. They're going up against the Washington no-names. He did look like the feature back that one week, and we thought with Malcolm Brown having a broken finger, it would be good. But last week had a bit of a dud. Definitely would expect him to do a little bit better this week, but don't expect him to be your saving grace.
At 32, we have Nyheim Hines. He is the clear pass-catching back in that Colts offense. So if they're playing from behind, he should be on the fields. Jonathon Taylor is getting majority of the work, and Jordan Wilkins is also kind of eating into Nyheim Hines' carries, but he's definitely there to catch passes. We'll see if they're playing from behind on the Cleveland Browns, but you're kind of banking on them doing that for him to be a reasonable play.
Well, and Phillip Rivers isn't going to throw the ball more than 10 yards, so it's a pretty good lock that he's going to have at least a few catches. He did have that dud week in week 2, but bounced back strong these past 2 weeks. Coming in at number 31, Mr. Mark Ingram, 8 carries, 34 yards, and a touchdown this week. That's kind of what you're banking on against the Bengals. He needs a touchdown. They spread it out. They handed to Gus Edwards later in the games. J.K. Dobbins always in the mix. You're probably a little disappointed because you drafted Mark Ingram pretty high, but sometimes you just got to lay in the bed you made.
Take it on the chin. At 30, we have Philip Lindsay making his return in week 5 is what reports are saying. They're taking on the Patriots, so it's a bit of a tough matchup, but we'll see how Philip Lindsay comes back from his injury. He's definitely a talented player and has the opportunity and talent to be a productive running back. So you're probably happy that he can be in the flex position on your team this week.
And Brett Rippon is Rippon is definitely going to need him. They're going to look to run the ball a lot more. They ran it a lot with Melvin last week, so with Phillip returning, they could just do it even more. At number 29, we have D'Ernest Johnson, who has now successfully taken over the Kareem Hunt role. They're going up against the Colts this week. It's a pretty rough matchup, but he just came off a 13 carry for 95-yard game. And if we know anything about the Browns, it's that Baker Mayfield sucks and they love to run the ball. So this guy will see some work. You're not necessarily going to bank on him to win you your season, but if you're looking for a spot start, you got some bye weeks, you got some injuries, look his way.
At number 28, we have Malcolm Brown taking on the Washington football team. A bit of a more stout defense. This is definitely a pick we could get wrong every week between Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson. Malcolm Brown seemed to take on a bit more of the work this past week, so that's why we have him higher on the list. It's just a guessing game with that backfields. But with the scarcity of running backs in this league, you might find yourself having to flex Malcolm Brown this week.
Yeah, and I think you can chalk that up to his pinky injury, slightly more recovered, and just the fact that he's the veteran guy. Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, they look up to him, so he should see some work. At number 27, we have Devonta Freeman going up against the Dallas Cowboys. His third week in the offense. Last week he saw more production, 11 carries, 33 yards, had some passing works, 4 catches, 35 yards. I think you can continue to see him grow. I don't know if this is necessarily the player that's going to win you your season, but check back in 4 or 5 weeks, he might be a stud again. But as long as he's there, the Giants need help.
At 26 is Myles Gaskin. Kind of saw a decrease in workload in week 4 with only 10 carries for 40 yards, 3 receptions for 22 yards, so it was nice to see him in the passing game a bit. They were playing from behind. He was definitely still the clear lead back on that team. You can count on Jordan Howard to kind of get those goal line, red zone touches to steal his touchdowns, but he is the lead back, so he's definitely a player that you can feel good about having on your team over some of these other players.
At number 25, we have James White, who just returned from his tragic family incident, had a pretty solid showing in week 4 against the Chiefs. This week they're taking on the Broncos. I think you can expect him to be used in the passing game again. He'll get a few carries here and there. And overall, looking like a pretty good start. Also coming in at number 25, due to a lack of competence between me and Greg, and just the fact that we forgot to add him completely, coming in, Mr. Damien Harris, also copping out by just throwing them both in the same ranking and having them both be on the same team. But he rushed for 17. He rushed 17 times for 100 yards. The backfield back there, you never know who's going to get it, but it does look like he could be the one.
At 24, we have Antonio Gibson, who emerged as kind of the lead back in week 4 against the tough Ravens defense, had 13 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown, 4 receptions for 82 yards. Does have another tough matchup against the Rams, but if you're having some running back depth issues or injuries, you could do a lot worse than Antonio Gibson. At least you know he's going to get a majority of the work in that backfield.
Coming up next, at number 23, we have Joshua Kelly. 9 carries, 7 yards, pretty disappointing game, but they're taking on the Saints. Austin Eckler's down, so you can expect him to get an increase in the work. I think he'll have more than 9 carries this week. Hopefully he can stop fumbling the friggin' ball so much, but other than that, I think he's the running back you want on the Chargers.
At 22, we have Ronald Jones, who really capitalized on an opportunity last week with Leonard Fournette out, had 20 carries for 111 yards with 6 receptions for 17 yards. They're taking on the Bears, so it is a bit of a tough defense. And Ronald Jones has kind of proven to be a bit inconsistent at running back, but just because of how scarce running backs are these days, you could count on Ronald Jones, especially from the amount of touches he's getting.
Yeah, that whole running back core is banged up too, so he's kind of the only guy. But up next, we have David Montgomery, 10 carries, 27 yards, 3 catches, 30 yards. A disappointing week. We expected him to do better with Nick Foles, but Nick Foles just looked terrible. Hopefully this week they can bounce back against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
At 20, we have Devin Singletary. Last week had 18 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown, 5 receptions for 21 yards. He definitely looked good out there without Zach Moss kind of eating into his shares. And Zach Moss is looking unlikely to play this upcoming week too. So Devin Singletary is looking like a fine play against the Titans.
Coming up next, we have Mr. Todd Gurley of the Atlanta Trash Falcons. They're playing the Panthers this week. He just came off a 2-touchdown game, but it is probably the lowest of the low for 2-touchdown games. Doesn't make you feel good. They were giving the ball to Brian Hill near the goal line. He came in, got it after Brian Hill couldn't make it happen, but I'm not feeling too hot on Todd Gurley. How about you as a Todd Gurley owner?
As a Todd Gurley owner, I'm also not feeling too hot. He did have those 2 touchdowns, but they just, like you said, were not great touchdowns. He just doesn't look explosive, but, I mean, you're kind of stuck with Todd Gurley if you drafted him, so you just got to ride it out. At number 18, we have Melvin Gordon, MG3. Last week had 23 carries. I think you can probably see that lesson with Phillip Lindsay coming back. There is a tough matchup with the New England Patriots, but Melvin Gordon has the talent. He's going to see a little less work. I think you can still count on at least 15 carries for Melvin Gordon, and he's a talented runner, so he should be able to do something special at some point during the game.
Yeah, apparently he's made of adamantium too. I thought that dude was about to get dropped on his spine when he tried to leap a man standing straight up, got a helmet to the dick, walked it off. So, I mean, just mad respect points right there for Melvin Gordon.
It was nice to see him bust off a fat one at the end, just to kind of show that his crotch was holding up.
Brett Rippon just throwing a nasty block out there to seal the edge,
nice,
which he didn't even succeed in, but it's okay. Up next, we have Jerick McKinnon. He's looking like the guy with all the injuries in the backfield of the 49ers. They're playing the Dolphins this week, so definitely a team you can run against. Hopefully, you can see him continue his production. I think Raheem Mostert is not looking likely to play once again. There is a chance, but if he doesn't, Jerick McKinnon, another good start this week.
At number 16, we have Miles Sanders taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's getting the work. He's definitely the feature back in that offense. There's just not really much talent there, so he is a bright spot. The Steelers are just a rough defense, and the Eagles' offense just looks garbage, and good defenses are going to feast against bad offenses. So Miles Sanders is you're going to have to start him, but not feeling too great about Miles Sanders this week.
Up next, we have Jonathon Taylor at the 15 spot. They're going against the Cleveland Browns. He had a pretty disappointing week against the Bears, but that was a tough matchup, so to be expected. He's still getting the work. He's still getting the carries, had 17 last game. And you shouldn't be too worried about Jonathon Taylor. You probably scooped him real late too, so you're liking your outlook with Jonathon Taylor.
At number 14, we have David Johnson. Last week, finally got over 15 carries, had 16 carries with 63 yards, 2 receptions for 29. Kind of a disappointing output. You're hoping for more, especially in that first game without a brutal matchup. Taking on the Jags this week. You're a David Johnson owner in our league. How are you feeling about David Johnson at this point?
I was definitely expecting David Johnson to have his first big week, and the fact that he didn't is definitely disappointing. He dropped a pitch play where they could have had a touchdown at the end of the game. That really hurt. The offensive line looks terrible. I'm just hoping that Bill O'Brien getting out of town will be just equal success. I don't know how that formula adds up. Texans minus Bill O'Brien equals dubs, but I'm hoping that's what goes down. Still waiting to see what David Johnson can do against this piss-poor Jags run defense. Up next, we have Mike Davis at the 13 spot. A real surprising play, looking like a mustache backup for CMC if you have him. Another big game on the ground and through the air. They're playing the Falcons. Should be another easy matchup with hopefully a lot of points in that game.
At number 12, we have Joe Mixon. Finally showed up for fantasy owners with a monster game, 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown. Despite a tough matchup last week, he really came through for you. So kind of a sigh of relief for Joe Mixon owners. Another rough matchup against the Baltimore Ravens this week, though. But you got to be riding high after that performance. So go ahead and ride it out with Joe Mixon because that's all you can really do. Hopefully he can be consistent.
Yeah, not to rain on anyone's parade, but I'm not seeing another 40-point game out of Joe Mixon this season. But if he does, more power to you. Coming up next, though, we have Kenyan Drake at the 11 spot. They are taking on the New York Jets. Kenyan Drake, very similar situation to Joe Mixon last week. I'm hoping he can see some success as well. The Jets are so bad. Kenyan Drake left the game early with an injury. Not that he was playing well in the time he was there, but you got Kenyan Drake. You can't do anything else. Kyler Murray, he'll get back on track. I wouldn't worry about that.
And to clarify, his injury I heard was just had the wind knocked out of him, so he should be completely fine.
That's a weak ass injury.
Yeah, it is. I think they just took him out just to be safe. At number 10, we have James Robinson, a real standout this year at the running back spot. Last week had 17 carries for 75 yards. He's involved in the passing game. He's definitely that Jags lead back week in and week out. Has a pretty desirable matchup against the Houston Texans. If you have James Robinson, you're probably sitting pretty. So keep on keeping on with James Robinson.
Yeah, it's great to see a good rookie just take over a top 10. Coming in at number 9, we have Chris Carson, just an absolute monster. 16 carries, 80 yards, 2 tutties, 3 catches for 20 yards, and they're playing against the weak Vikings defense, which has just been letting up points all year. I could see this being a shootout. He'll probably get some receiving touchdowns, maybe a couple goal line carries. Good to see him not hurt as well after they went Steve Irwin on him and Gator tackled him. Gotta get them while they're down.
At number 8, we have Josh Jacobs, who will hopefully find the end zone this week. You were riding high week 1, but have kind of been famine a little bit with Josh Jacobs. The Raiders are going to need their playmakers to show up against a talented Chiefs team, and I think Josh Jacobs will come through for you.
At number 7, you have Kareem Hunt, and boys, you did it. You drafted him because you were hoping that this would happen. And you never wish for an injury for a player, but Nick Chubb's out. You now have another running back 1 on your team. He's going to produce. The Browns love to run the ball. The Colts defense is a tough matchup, but congratulations, my boys.
At number 6, we have James Conner coming off of the COVID bye week, so should be pretty well rested. And he had some injuries earlier this season, so that rest was probably good for him to heal up a bit. They're taking on the Eagles. The Steelers want to run, and the Eagles will probably get run on. James Conner is going to get his carries, and he'll probably have a good week against the Eagles.
At number 5, we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire playing the Raiders. Should definitely be an easy matchup once again. He's been producing pretty well for a rookie. Just the high-powered offense is what's going to keep you coming back to him every week, and the Raiders are definitely not good on defense.
At number 4, we have Derrick Henry with 20-plus carries every single week. Derrick Henry's an automatic lock-in. He's a monster of a man. They're taking on the Bills. Derrick Henry should be heavily involved in this game.
At number 3, we got Zeke Elliott coming off another below-average game, but still very involved in the passing offense. I should say below-average run game. 14 carries, 12 carries the past 2 weeks, but 6 catches and 8 catches. I think he'll get back to the ground of this game against the Giants, maybe a little less receiving work, but definitely another big day ahead of him.
At number 2, we have Dalvin Cook, who is an absolute monster last week, playing like a real purple people eater. 27 carries, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. They're taking on the Seahawks, and the Seahawks will definitely give it up for you. So I think Dalvin Cook is due for another big week.
At number 1, we got the steeziest boy in the game, Alvin Kamara. Kamara, excuse me. They're playing the Chargers this week. You know what it is. We don't even need to talk about this.
Thanks for checking out this video. If you have any issue with where we put any of these players or who we put on this list, go ahead and let us know in the comments. We can handle the heat, and we will not get out of the kitchen.
Bully us if you'd like. We're ready.
We can handle it. We're tough boys, but we are so desperate for approval. Hence the YouTube channel.